Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. So, welcome, Ryan Rawlins, the guru of finance from Amplified Lending in Money Street, Perth. Ryan, I find that funny that you should run a finance company from Money Street.
Yeah, amazing marketing, isn't it? Paid good money for that.
Did you?
We did. We did.
Paid good money for it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. No, it's good. Great location. Edge of Northbridge. Nice and central.
Yes.
Old character house.
Yes.
Mm.
And so you're a finance broker,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been doing that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
How long?
18 years.
18 years.
18 years.
Wow.
Yep. It's a long time.
What got you into finance broking?
Real estate, I'd say. Yeah, I guess I wanted to learn how to buy more property. So happened to sit next to a guy on a plane randomly around the UK or whatever. I was in Europe for a couple of years, and I had a house by then, and he said, so have you got any advice for a budding real estate guy? And he said, just go and learn the lending side of things. I kind of shelved that, didn't really think too much about it, and then got an opportunity a couple of years later to get a start in the industry, which I embraced. And there was no glory in the early days. It's pretty tough doing your apprenticeship on commission only. So
did you start in real estate?
No, I'd had a house in 98. I bought my first house, just turned 20. Ended up being the best thing I ever did. Enabled me to go travelling 4 years later, I think, 5 years later. Yep. My mates used to joke and say you used to leave bricks around Europe.
Used to leave what?
Bricks around Europe because I travelled on my equity essentially. So I took a larger loan than I needed, and I used that to fund my my travels and trying to do as little work as possible basically for a couple of years. So minimum wage kind of stuff, but a lot of fun. A lot of fun over there. So he got back and, still had a lot of equity and was still a lot further, I guess, advanced than the guys I travelled with, who were basically out of Sydney, who'd saved big deposits but probably spent most, if not all of that, and come back to really nothing and had to start again. So, when you're talking about time in the market, I guess that's now 20 years down the track, and it's gone pretty well. The guys that I was working with at the time I bought my house had said, why don't you buy just around the corner in Queen's Park, large block, a little 1960s house on it that needed renovation. We ended up subdividing that, selling the front after a renovation, and built to the back, and it's part of my portfolio still.
Is that right? You've still got it?
Yeah, it's now room by room rental. So, do some stuff outside the square in that. But I guess for us, we kind of walk the talk. We're doing what, I guess, if we're preaching to anyone, we're practicing what we preach. We are real estate people that get paid by the bank is essentially how it goes.
You're real estate people
get paid by the bank.
Paid by the bank.
Yeah, so our first love is real estate. There's no doubt that in my mind, real estate's a lot more exciting than dealing with banks and talking interest rates and stuff like that. They're just basically a vehicle to get you where you want to get to. So we like to think that we get clients from A to B, whatever that looks like for them, faster than if they did it themselves, whether that be paying off of one house or building a portfolio of properties. Off the back of that, we've done, a heap of stuff in real estate. We've invested over east, done 3 or 4 major renovations, three developments now, 3 subdivisions. We're about to build a triplex in Mount Lawley as well. So, Yeah, we had our time on the sidelines too when the banks pulled in their belts and were making it harder for investors to add to their portfolio. We had to sit on the pine for a bit longer than what we wanted. But it's exciting times when you do get back off that pine and you are able to get active in the market.
So you started out virtually straight from a kind of a labouring kind of job, is that right, or a warehouse?
I was in a warehouse at the time. I was going through university. I didn't last long at university. Peter, I've got half a certificate on the wall, but no, I just listened to older guys, I guess, that had been there and done that a bit, and for the price of $85,000 for 930 square metres and that old house. Looking back, it seemed like nothing. I remember the house next door to me coming on the market 2 or 3 years later and it got sold for $100,000. I thought, geez, they got ripped off. Looking back,
like you'd take 10 of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
If you look back on it.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I guess where we see value is more land content, bigger blocks. We're pretty lucky in Perth. There's still a lot available in that. There certainly aren't at the price that they were, but there's still a lot of underdeveloped, low density kind of areas that you can tap into that I think will perform really well.
Where are you targeting? What like if an investor comes to you, what's the sort of places that you look at?
The area, it'd be no surprise to you, maybe that Ashfield, Bassendean. I like the availability of public transport, and the river's a nice thing to be in close proximity of. Eden Hill, things like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I rate those areas. I rate them a lot. I think that little area around Bassendean, Eden Hill, Bayswater is just lovely. You've got some really nice little shops in there. It's quite quaint. You've got some destination little coffee places and cake places, and then you've got that little strip of old bric-a-brac vintage shops, antiques along what is it? Is it James Street or in over near the hotel?
Yep, that's right. Old Perth Road as well.
Yeah, that's the one I'm referring to. Yeah, I love that little area in there.
Yeah, I mean, people will go like sometimes you're tainted by that. I've always lived here, and therefore Ashfield's not a suburb that I'd ever invest in. I mean, my first place was Queen's Park, and back in those days, people were going, "What are you doing?" It's like, well, they generally improve those areas. It does sometimes take years, but they have to improve them. So
yeah. Well, the thing with those areas that we've been talking about, they are quite close to the city. Like they're 10 or 11 k's from the city.
That's right.
And as you say, they've got really good transport. And we're talking really good transport. You've got those, the Roe Highway and so on.
Improved all those. Yep.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah. Well, my wife's got 2 properties in Redcliffe side by side right next to the new train station, so we played the long game there as well. She's had that for maybe 13, 14 years and 6 or 7 years for the other one. So, and we were waiting for that zoning to change, which hasn't yet, but that's inevitable. It's going to go to R100 and that'll be our big play.
You reckon?
Well, it is. It's just I believe they've got some drainage issues to do with the tunnel, but Michael Keel would know more about that. He was the one telling me about it. So,
Michael, he's been
he's probably sold every house twice in that in those areas. But So we're playing the long game with those kind of things too. Getting through the development in Mount Lawley is the next thing for us. So after that, we'll have another play at a 10 to 15 year house, I guess, a forever home if you want to call it.
What's your difficulties with your Mount Lawley project? What's
490 square metres, abutting a industrial unit on the train line. Aside from that, it's a perfect site. It's on 490 square metres, but we've squeezed 3 on. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's the Highgate end. It's where Guildford meets Lord meets Walcott. Right. There's a Kooyong bookstore, and we're on the back of that.
Wow.
I got excited. I learnt about the R codes, in particular the apartment, what do they call it, the plot ratio application, and I went out and just bought something pretty quickly. But it's a little bit of an ugly duckling, but we'll hopefully get through the construction in the next year or two, touch wood. And
how many levels are you going?
Just 2.
It's just 2?
Yeah, well, the back blocks are 130 square metres, so yeah, it's just 2. We had 7 apartments approved back in the day, 7 one-bedders, but we didn't proceed with that.
Yeah. So you're stacking units on top of one another?
No, they're like townhouses.
They're townhouses. Wow.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
It'll be small.
It is. I'll show you the plans, Peter. You'd be impressed by the size of the rooms. I was. I thought they're just going to be little dog boxes, but pretty impressive, that space with the design and everything that those guys do.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you having them architect designed, or are you just?
It was designed through a builder that was, I guess, focused on developing and investor market. But they're aesthetically pleasing. I'm sure when they're finished, you and I will just go, ooh, when we see them. But
he's fallen in love with his own product. How dangerous.
Exactly. I'm going to give you the sale price soon. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of ugly stuff that gets done in the space, in particular yesteryear, where there wasn't so much, I guess, red tape around what you can and can't get approved. I think it's a good thing that the councils are a bit picky about what goes into their suburbs, because they do stand the test of time generally, and can be quite an eyesore. You know, the suicide flats of Maylands and Mount Lawley or whatever, they were just, there's not a lot of design that went into them.
No, they were
ugly blocks.
They were terrible designs, though. It's
yep.
Yeah, just designed to stack people in on top of one another, and
well, it's a definite need for improving or increasing the density in certain areas, but you can do it in a way that's better than other ways.
Yeah. You want your home somewhere where you come home from work and it lifts your spirits.
Yes.
But some of these places, and I think we're lucky here in Australia, where by and large we have a pretty high standard of accommodation as compared to some of the, other countries.
Definitely. You don't know until you travel, though, Peter. A lot of people that whinge locally haven't really seen what it's like overseas.
I've heard.
We are very lucky.
I've heard of even people in Australia living in laundries. I know that I actually did when I was a student. I was living in my bedroom was the laundry at my brother's place, and a luxury accommodation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was on one of those shearers beds.
Okay.
Yeah, those mesh shearers beds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Giving us a glimpse of your age, Peter, or what is it? And I mean, what kind of shearing gets done? Are you a country boy, and that's where it was? Or?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
That's why I'm so rough around the edges.
Oh, mate. I just think maybe you got a fleece that needs trimming once in a while. No.
Shit. Tell me, old matey on the aeroplane that you were telling us about earlier, and it sounds like his advice had a pretty big impact on your life. Did you ever stay in touch with him?
No, not at all. No, it was just one of those guys that will always chat to the person sitting next to you, or the checkout chick or whatever. Sarah's always rolling her eyes about, here's Ryan coming in with a conversation just to a random. But no, I've got a lot to thank. You have people in your lives for a reason. I don't want to get too cliched or whatever, but you're learning off everyone around you anyway. That's why they say you should.
So you're a bit like Mick Dundee in New York, just walking down the street. Hi, I'm Mick. I'm from I'm from Australia.
All that a knife.
From Ryan. I'm from.
Yeah. No, I guess when you meet someone that's doing the thing maybe that you aspire to do, you want to learn off them. So just let the guy talk.
Yep.
And he seemed to own half of the UK. We were living in a very basic accommodation, kicked the guy out that was living there before that I think was smoking in the bed and stuff like that. But he seemed to own all these rooms and stuff like that. And I guess the basic need of real estate and people needing a roof over their head was just attractive with how you can provide that and how you can use it to generate wealth, hopefully.
What I find interesting about that story is it's a little bit the same as my story, but I got into real estate and you got into finance, but we were both in the same industry. As we were both
Absolutely.
Tackling the same problems with different tools. Tell me, So when I see a real estate like problem, I see it as a real estate problem, but you see it as more as a finance problem.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some famous guy that said real estate is a game of finance, and that's the truth.
Is that Ryan Rawlins?
Well, yeah, you can quote me on that if you want. Circa 2024. But no, look, it is your ability to fund the projects, unless you're going to stay out of the market and save up a massive deposit and pay cash for it. You need the banks. They're just a necessary evil. And a lot of people balk at interest rates, or they balk at lenders' mortgage insurance, and I'm never going to pay LMI. I'm going to stay out of the market and save my 20% deposit. Good luck. Next year you'll be paying $100,000 more for that property. To save 10 grand's worth of LMI just makes no sense at all. So yeah, no, you got to take those kind of things with a pinch of salt. And I guess we pride ourselves on keeping the banks at bay and not giving any one bank absolute control over your situation. So if you've got multiple properties, we'll often have them with different banks. We certainly don't cross-secure any banks.
Is that right? So you wouldn't put all your eggs in the one basket?
Absolutely not. They want to, obviously, because if they make it harder for you to leave, then you won't, because it's going to be a pain in the neck because you've got all your banking with one bank. They'll often unnecessarily cross-secure you. So when you go and sell one, you think you're going to get X amount from a sale, but they'll go, hang on a minute, we're going to revalue that other property that you've kept, and lo and behold, you're not going to get what you want out of that sale. So, and especially in business, that the first thing they'll go for is bricks and mortar. So,
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to kind of sell your soul to get that first business loan or whatever, but as soon as we can unravel that and free you up and get your owner-occupied home at the very least out of that kind of security position, we'll do that. Yeah, I mean, they offer you great interest rates. The more with borrowing you bring across to a bank, they'll give you a sharper rate and those kind of things. So there's the enticement there to bring everything across, but no, it certainly doesn't work out for you overly well.
What's your advice to first home buyers?
Buy the most expensive property that you can at the
Really?
time. Yep. I mean, the bank's going to put 3% on top of your interest rate and qualify you at that, and they'll buffer other things, like some parts of your income might be buffered at, they'll take 80% of that. So that no one's putting you under financial stress. But essentially, if the bank's going to lend you X amount of money, you take that.
What would you say to somebody who goes, and look, I agree with what you've just said, buy the most expensive home that you can. What would you say to somebody who says, oh, but you're just trying to saddle people up to a lifetime of debt?
I am. Yep, absolutely. We get the trail payment every month. No, look, I mean, all that's true. I mean, we disclose that to the dollar, but it essentially is like if you were going to take a 5% average return on a $500,000 property over the life of your time, right? That's not going to perform as well as 5% of $1 million, and compounding interest, once you understand compounding interest, which is a double-edged sword, and compounding interest on your home loan, but also the compounding interest on growth, any financial planner will tell you that, a difference of 2% is a massive difference over the life of your investing. So, yeah, look, I just know that a higher priced property will outperform a lower priced property. Cheap properties have cheap problems. It's, with property management, with tenants, with everything, maintenance, there's a whole host of things, Why would I buy that $1 million property when I can buy two $500,000 properties? Well, let's just have more of a chat around that.
I like the idea, because if you buy a property, let's say for $700, and you're stretching, you think you're stretching yourself, but you could have actually gone to, let's say, 9, or let's say 8. So you go, well, I'll buy something for $700 because that I feel reasonably comfortable.
Yep.
At $700, you're going to be making a lot of compromises in this market, a lot of compromises.
Especially now, that's right. You're buying the $500,000 property.
And
a year or two ago.
Yeah. So you're buying this property that is probably let's say it's a bedroom too small, it's 200 square meters too small, it's there's some sort of problem with it. 5 years down the track, 3 years down the track, you decide you want to start a family.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, you're going to have 12 kids, but you're going to start a family. And very quickly, that $700,000 home is too small.
That's it.
So you go, well, I'm going to sell that. So you've got $20,000 in agents' commissions plus $10,000 worth of staging expenses. So there's 30. And then you're going to buy a property worth, let's say, now it's $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And let's roll it back to 900. So you've got 30 grand's worth of buying expenses.
Yep.
30 plus 30 is 60.
Yep.
You would have been better off paying a little bit extra in interest payments and living in an $800,000 or $900,000 property from the start.
100%.
Having that extra bedroom, having that extra bathroom, having that extra land, and being able to say, well, I started there, I had my kids here, I stayed here, and been happy.
Yep, that's right, 100%. We see it all the time. You see the first home buyer that buys something that they can afford.
Yep,
but
they're comfortable with.
That they're comfortable with, but a lot of those parameters are put in by themselves. They have these glass ceilings that they go,
up here.
Yeah, that's right. I can only afford this. Or what are you basing that on? The bank thinks you can afford that.
Yes.
Your savings pattern and your expenditure, it makes me think that you can afford a lot more. It's just, that's why we'll always work back from the maximum and give you a range off the back of that. So if your maximum loan is, 800, we'll give you 700 and 600 instead of giving you 600 and then, funnily enough, the market's going really well and your 600 you need to be at 7 and then at 8. Then you're chasing down the market. If we give you the maximum straight up and get you pre-approved at that maximum, you go out there with a lot more confidence. And you should be thinking about if you're buying with someone or you're buying your first house, you've got to have those discussions around what's the next 5-10 years look like. And if part of that is kids, well, maybe you should take a bigger bite, That's what I think.
Have you ever seen someone who has gone down that path that you've suggested and gone hard, gone long and gone, did really good?
Oh, all the time. Mm-hmm. All the time. I say to my clients, you're going to give yourself a high five if you go at the top end of your range rather than your bottom end. I don't want to be having this conversation just like you've described just before, where we're now going to have to turn that place over and buy a bigger house when you could have done that a couple of years ago. I mean, you've also got the possibility if you do buy a house that's too big, rent out a room. That's a good way to compensate the interest that you're paying. But like I said, the banks can't overlend to you. No one wants to put you under financial stress. If the bank's giving you the money and you can live comfortably, we always talk about keeping a buffer set aside, 10, 20 grand, depending on the client. So, if all your other fail-safes fail, you've still got that and you're still able to sleep at night. We got no interest in having conversations around you can't afford the house and what are your options? You've got to sell up. That's not – we very rarely land that. So we will regularly see clients follow our advice and that's great. They still come back to us in a few years, funnily enough, and want to go even larger.
Go again, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that on the day that you settle on the home, in all likelihood, that is the lowest your salary will ever be.
Yeah, correct, unless you're at the other end of your career and you want to downsize. Yeah, but by and large, the majority of people are always going to earn more.
If you're buying your first home, it is almost certainly that the day that you sign up for that offer, for that loan contract, your salary is never going to be less than it is at that point.
That's correct.
So you might as well go, well, in 5 years' time, if I'm on any sort of growth path in my career, my salary is probably going to be somewhere around about 2/3 to 100% more than it is today.
Yeah, potentially. That's right. It's certainly not going the other way. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So you might as well get stuck in and have a crack.
That's right. Yep. But a lot of people are tainted by that person at the barbecue that's had that terrible experience. Uncle Bob bought with no advice around that, just bought throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold and, had to sell within a year or two and, funnily enough, took a loss. They're the most parochial at the barbecues. They're the ones that have got the most to say, unfortunately. So most people go, well, real estate's not that great and, you got to be careful out there and you got to, live within your means and buy the cheapest property and just pay that one off. And once you've paid that off, you're going to have the best life. The reality is that's just not true. So, I mean, it might suit some people that way. Some people don't even want ever to pay off a house. So, they just stay renting. Good luck to them. I don't have too many of those clients, Peter, funnily enough.
No, well, you probably
don't have many cash offers buyers either as clients, but yeah.
No, yeah. So I know someone that is buying a home, in the process of buying a home. Mm-hmm. They have somewhere north of $400K deposit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're only comfortable going to 700. And I just think, well, why? And so one of the factors here is they've spoken to a financial planner.
I'll poke the bear, Peter.
Please do. What's your experience there?
At the risk of making gross generalisations, which is probably where you want me to end up, but look, they're not. I mean, they're not paid to give real estate advice, are they? I mean, they get paid for.
Well, real estate is not funds. A financial product.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So they're generally not real estate people. I've yet to find too many financial planners, financial advisors that are into real estate. So first of all, understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're well worth their money and should be taken a lot more into consideration as you're moving towards retirement, obviously. I think they're part of your A team. I think good finance broker, accountant, financial planner, buyer's agent, settlement agent, all those things are key people around you, especially as we get older and make more mature decisions. But I'm yet to be blown away by a financial planner and their love of real estate. It just doesn't happen in my experience. Fair enough. You stick with what you know. They stick with how they get paid as well. Their financial models change, so they're not necessarily getting the commissions that they were. They're charging more a fee for service and things like that. But they're more generally into shares, managed funds and things like that. So I think a well-balanced portfolio across the board with real estate in there is, we're obviously real estate people, so our investing is primarily done in that regard, but we've got shares and we've obviously got super as well that's indirectly in the shares as well. So, yeah,
look, I am a fan of finance, of what do we call them? Wealth. What did I just call them?
Financial planners?
Financial planners, thank you. I'm a fan of financial planners.
Yep, me too.
And, we've got a mutual connection that we're, I've got a lot of respect for.
Yep. Me too.
In fact, it's Cora Drage from Visia. I had Cora out to my office just yesterday, and she did a presentation to my team about salary sacrifice to super and all those sorts of tricky things. And Cora is, I would say, a real estate fan. She's and
only in the last few years, Peter. I've known her for over 10, and most of those have been not so much of a fan.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's fine. But my point is this: financial planners are great, but when they get too theoretical, I think they lose the plot for me. As in, the lived experience of good real estate moves is very different to the lived experience of a share portfolio.
Yeah, I think you'll find
I can live in a home, live in my home. I don't have a property manager coming around and telling me to clean the soap suds off the shower screen. I don't have I can paint the walls whatever colour I want. I can park my car on the lawn if I want. I can let the plants die, or I can do whatever in my home.
Yep.
Now, what value do you place on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's to me, it's not a financial decision at all.
Yeah, well, look, if you're talking strictly investing, then maybe the owner-occupied house is out of the equation anyway, in a true sense. I mean, it often gives you the vehicle to open the door for investing. But I think, by and large, and Cora would say this herself, most people are very comfortable with bricks and mortar. They want to go and touch the tangible
100%,
thing, whereas you're talking about shares and these future projections, when you retire, that, this amount of shares is going to end up with that and all those kind of things. Most people are a little bit skeptical of that. It's almost like make-believe, really, like, this crypto, as well. I know that that's never going to be part of a financial planner's advice, perhaps, but, there's a whole lot of stuff that you just can't see and touch. And I think that cornerstone of investing in something that people, need a roof over their head is just paramount, I guess, for people's safety and their risk profile, I suppose. I think you should have a mixture of both at some point. But look, for our personal circumstances, being self-employed and things like that, we're just not contributing to a super like we should. I've always thought that I'll back myself and make that contribution to another property, and that'll go better for me than some kind of managed fund or share portfolio that I can't even see. So, I'm a little bit skeptical with that, but I think those that want to go down that path, and I certainly, Cora's my financial planner too, so we'll be asking her for some very tailored advice off the back end of our Mount Lawley development sale when that finally goes through. There's going to be some hopefully sexy things that she can do with minimising our tax and setting ourselves up for our retirement whenever that is. So, well worth the money. I think just on that point, I think you should pay for good advice in that regard. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think as long as people are transparent and they know what they're getting into, which she is, and she gives different models of compensation as well. But that I think it's a great conversation for her. I'm sure you're going to have her on at some point.
I've already had her on.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, glad I'm second fiddle, Philip.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you are. It's just that the last two episodes that we've recorded
have a full disclosure. This is our third go at this episode.
This is our third go. My God, we'll finally get you on.
Hopefully it makes the cut, Peter. Yeah,
I hope so.
Just a little snippet anyway.
Yeah. Well, yes, we'll get a snippet of it. Yeah. So on that advice thing, I had an accountant, and I probably should still have him, to be honest, like a guy called Mike Beer from Munros, and I was renting an old office down in Maddington where I had my then business, and I thought there's no future renting this place at Unit 6123 Burslem Drive in Maddington, watching the lads from the local TAFE do burnouts through the roundabout, and there were some good burnouts, I've got to say, but I just couldn't see a great future staying there. And I thought, well, I reckon I should buy a property and rent it through my super fund, and then get my business to rent it off my super fund. And
beautiful.
So I went looking, and in fact it was my wife Rita that said that this office, we saw this office and had views out over the park and whatever, the one that we're in, and she said that looks like a beauty. So thanks Rita, and I went to the accountant and I said, look, Mike, I want to buy this property in the super. I want to take out one of those super gear borrowings inside the super. I think it was up to 60% you could borrow.
Right.
And I thought, well, I've got to come up with the rest. And I was going to sell my shares and dump the to fund the rest of the purchase price. And Mike said to me, Pete, why would you do that? Now, Mike's not a financial planner, but he is a pretty clever tax accountant.
Yep.
And he says, why, you've got some really good shares in your super fund.
Yep.
Why would you do that?
Yep.
Why wouldn't we borrow money inside your family company, dump that in as I think it was called a concessional contribution or whatever it was.
Sounds like words. Yep.
It's
Good words. Well done.
and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just, suddenly I've gone from, having almost no debt to this, big debt to buy this whole office.
Yes.
We talked before about comfort zones, and you're pushing people out of comfort zones, and that was one of those moments for me where I got really, really nervous. I thought, do I really want to take this extra debt on? To be frank, it frightened me, and I went, listen to the advice that you're paying. I think he was $500 an hour or whatever it was. Like he's a good accountant, but he knows how to charge. And listen to the advice you're paying to receive. So, and I did. And that was 2016. And I've got $46,000 left on that loan. Like I could pay it off now.
Sounds like you need to talk to me, mate. More debt.
More debt.
Yeah.
But
amazing, mate.
It's just, and that there's an office that is, is going to be very shortly. I'll own it outright, and it'll be like, that's just pumping money into my super, and who knows what I can do with that.
Yeah.
So
the first home buyer listeners out there, please. Thoughts and prayers with Peter as he's paying off his second property and outright. And
it's the point isn't to
get the right advice.
It's get good advice
and go with it
and trust the good advice that you're actually going to be okay. Like it's so easy to get freaked out by these. You've lived all your life with no debt or a $20,000 credit card debt, and then suddenly you're now in the $700,000 or $800,000. Just go for it.
Absolutely. I mean, what's the alternative? You're going to pay rent for the rest of your life. Those kind of things. When you weigh that up, and everyone's well aware of how much rent has grown. I mean, that's the canary in the coal mine, and that goes first, and all those kind of things. But that in itself you start equating the rent payment and your mortgage repayment, and it's pretty close these days. So it's quite an easy step in that regard. But you're right, seeing zeros on your mortgage on your home loan,
and you sit there at the start of a $600,000 or $700,000 mortgage, and you go, I'm.
Particularly for first home buyers,
first repayment, and you look at the principal is now $699,999.
You skimmed 2 cents off. Well done.
Am I ever going to pay this back?
Yeah,
and then
that's the first home buyer range these days. So that's first home buyerville. They're taking out that kind of mortgage for that, but
and that's first.
It's going to get a lot worse.
And that's first home buyer range in Perth.
Yeah.
You think about what you'd be buying in Sydney.
Yeah,
we're very conservative over here.
Absolutely.
7 figures easy, like any day of the week over there.
Yep.
Yeah, unless you were buying a little 1-bedroom unit in one of the western suburbs. And maybe.
Yep. They call them all Westies over there. I'm a Westie. That's what my Sydney mates tell me.
Is that right?
Well, I'm living in the West, but yeah. No, anyway.
Look, I think we'll wrap this episode up here. Ryan.
Look forward to it, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ryan. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember, to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.